Tonight is the first of our Lived It lectures, where we bring in folks who have actually been out there, created companies, run companies, and we simply ask them to come in and tell you whatever they think you should know about that sort of process. So we never quite know what we're going to get. I'm going to hand the mic over to my colleague Peter Evans to introduce this evening's speaker. Peter, over to you.
Good evening. My name is Peter Evans. I'm with the Mars Venture Group as an advisor. I'm pleased to introduce Sean O'Day, who's a good friend of mine. When we were thinking about potential speakers for this particular season, people that have actually lived through some great startups, Sean's name came to mind very quickly, in my view. He is the guy that did not bring you the $5 coffee, but certainly is one of the people that we can credit with starting a movement towards gourmet coffee and improving our tastes. Way before Starbucks was on the map, Second Cup became a household name here and has been a very successful business ever since. And Sean was one of the people on the ground floor of that. So that's certainly one of the brand names you would have picked up in the invitation to this night's event. Also, though, have any of you put a document into one of those magical bins and seen it gone away and not really known what goes on in terms of the disposal of that? Sean and his colleagues were in on the ground floor of secure document shredding at Proshred Security, which I believe was also sold later to Iron Mountain, which is a very large company in the States. Very nice exit. What I like about Sean are many things, but what I think he brings is a passion to starting companies and working with entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, as an educator, as an angel investor, as a board member. He is truly a Renaissance man. He's a man of many talents, and he's very giving of his time. There is a long bio I have here, and as you will find with many of these speakers, they generally get very fidgety if I start to read it. I just wanted to let you know a little bit behind the scenes of what he's been like. So right now he is with a company called Cairncroft Management, which manages professional speakers. Ironically, his brother Frank O'Day is one of those speakers who's very noted as an author and has been along for the ride at Proshred as well as Second Cup, as a co-founder of Second Cup with Sean. And it's an amazing book, actually. When All You Have Is Hope is the name of the title, and I encourage you to read it. It's a very moving story, a rags to riches story of somebody that became one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Canada. And Sean's been a part of that story. I think the other thing that this illustrates, and Sean will be able to talk to, is that it's about a team of individuals. We do tend to focus on the leader of these organizations, like Frank, but Sean's one of those quieter guys in the corner that's getting the job done in many other ways, maybe part of the back-end infrastructure of the organization. So what I'd like to do is bring Sean up to talk about how he has lived it, how he's been successful, and how he brings a passion for the whole experience that is entrepreneurship. And without further ado, I give you Sean O'Day. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter. Thanks very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and talking at Mars. Can I talk over here? This works over here too? This is very clever. It is really marvelous to be here. And you guys are attending this series that is probably held by one of the best kept secrets in Toronto, Mars, and what Mars does for the community and for the business community is absolutely marvelous. And you're just sort of witnessing a little piece of it today. And so it's great to be part of all of that. As for myself, as Peter very nicely said, I've been in business for a long time. As I mentioned to somebody in the audience earlier, it's the decision to get into business came very early because nobody would hire me. And so I figured I better do something about that and got into business. But I've been involved in business all my life. When I was in high school, I was running some business or other. When I was in university, I was also involved in business, all legal, I assure you. And what And that just led me to, when I finished university, just to stay on that path and stay in business and get involved. And one of the things that I learned very early on is that I've never had an original idea in my life. All of the ideas, all of my business ideas, etc., there's somebody's done it before me in some form or other. I mean, coffee existed long before I came along, I'll tell you. And shredding paper and all those things. My middle name probably could be Xerox. I just copy people's ideas and make them better is really what I do. And so starting up companies such as Second Cup, we've really had the one thing that most entrepreneurs absolutely need, and that was our saving grace in starting all of the businesses that we started. And to Peter's point, whenever I talk about business and starting business, I will always say we, because it was we. There was no I in all of the businesses that I've been involved in. It's always we. And so we always had that very important thing that every entrepreneur has to have to really become successful is we always had a vision. We always had a vision of what we wanted that business to be. Before the business even started, we knew where we were going with that. And I'll illustrate a point to you how the Second Cup got started. And it was a really simple, almost an embarrassment, the way it got started. What happened was that one of our partners, Tom Culligan, who was involved right back in the early days, he was a shopping center manager and had lots of experience in shopping centers. So a friend of his in another shopping center at Scarborough Town Center said, "Look, Tom, you know some people who have a little coffee store in Burlington Mall. Do you want to see if they'll start a store in Scarborough Town Center?" And there was a little tiny kiosk selling coffee beans. So Tom checked it out, and they said no. Scarborough's a long way away. We'll stay here, thank you very much. But while we're looking at that, we're saying, wow, selling coffee. Who doesn't drink coffee? I mean, there's a lot of people drinking coffee. And you know what? Everybody's complaining about coffee. Strange, eh? Everybody drinks coffee, everybody's complaining about it. This is 1975. It's a long time ago. Coffee really was lousy in 1975. Everybody wanted a good cup of coffee, but you couldn't get it. The best coffee in town was instant coffee made by Nescafe. And for those of you living on the edge, hugging a few trees, you'd perhaps drink Sanka because it was decaffeinated. And you were out there. You were living on the edge if you were drinking Sanka coffee. So that was the whole nature of coffee in sort of to the average person in Canada. But there was lots of great coffees available. And people complained. If you went to a restaurant, you'd drink coffee and it had been on the burner for an hour or 2 hours. It was just old and the spoon would stand straight up in the coffee. And you just hated it, so you didn't order it. It was all horrible. So we said, people want a good cup of coffee. Let's open that coffee store in Scarborough Town Center. And so we went to work. And the interesting thing is, before that store opened, we knew it was the first store. We weren't opening a coffee store. We were opening a chain. And we knew, right down to our toes, we were going to have stores right across the country. And that's what kept it going. And let me tell you, we needed that because the store was a disaster. Oh my God, if you put together a business plan for your worst enemy to help him fail, you would have used us as an example. Let me tell you, it was horrible. Nobody wanted to buy our coffee. It was because all we were doing was selling coffee beans. We didn't sell a cup of coffee, we sold coffee beans. People would supposedly come buy coffee beans from Guatemala, Costa Rica, Kenya, Jamaica. Wow, all these exciting places. They'd buy these coffee beans, grind them up, take them home and make a cup of coffee at home, have great coffee at home. Except we ran into a bit of a problem. With all due respect for any of you who live in Scarborough, Scarborough was not the place to open a fine gourmet coffee store in 1975. Okay, people would come by and they look at these little brown pellets, in containers, and we'd get comments like, "Oh, do you have rabbits?" Or they'd see the signs, you know, Guatemala, Costa Rica. Will that work in my Canadian coffee maker? So this was a tough crowd. And so the customers stayed away in droves. And so we weren't doing very well, but we didn't quite figure out what was wrong, so we opened another store. Good, clever entrepreneurs that we were. And when that one didn't work, we opened a third. So now we got them surrounded. So anyway, it turns out we obviously figured at one point, this isn't working. And actually, our bank manager told us that when he started bouncing out checks. So anyway, this wasn't working. We had to come up with a solution. And the solution caused us to make 3 decisions that changed the coffee industry in North America, perhaps the world, but certainly in North America. Decision number 1, let's brew a pot of coffee and provide samples to people, just like they do in grocery stores for cheese or crackers or something like that. That works. People go and buy the crackers, they go and buy the cheese. Not bad. Let's do that. Next decision. Let's charge for the samples. The margins are better. Besides, we couldn't afford to give away the coffee. So that was what we're going to do. Third decision. This is the big one. Are you sitting down? This is the big one. That decision was, let's charge more for our coffee than anybody else in the mall so people will know they had a good cup of coffee. And as you may have known, or you may have realized, it worked. The lineup formed and never went away. And that was the whole thing. We created literally a whole different relationship between people and coffee. And the unique thing is that we learned, but only afterwards, that we actually created a whole new group of coffee drinkers. Because our store was in the food court of Scarborough Town Centre. There were 10 guys around us selling coffee. The guy selling French fries sold coffee. The guy selling hamburgers sold coffee. The guy selling fish and chips sold coffee. Everybody sold coffee. It was crappy coffee. That's a technical term in the coffee business. So anyway, what happened was our coffee was great coffee. And it was more expensive than the other guy's coffee. People came and they bought our coffee. More people came and bought coffee. And the interesting thing, as I started to say a moment ago, was in talking with the other retailers sometime later, we found out that their coffee sales didn't go down. Their coffee sales didn't go down. We actually created a new market. We got people to drink coffee who weren't drinking coffee in Scarborough Town Centre and in Square One Shopping Centre and in Billings Bridge in Ottawa. That was our third store, Ottawa. Notice how we clustered the marketing. So anyway, the point is, we created, at the time, and we didn't know this, literally a blue ocean. Now, many of you may have heard about the book Blue Ocean Strategy, which is all about companies who are in very tough, competitive industries who go out and create whole new markets where the competition is irrelevant. And that's exactly what we did. We actually started selling coffee more expensive than everybody else and brought in a whole new group of coffee drinkers. And then once with that formula going, cash flow started coming in. Thank God for cash flow. And we started to open up stores. And we pushed the stores out across the city and other cities and whatnot. We got up to about 13, 14 stores and ran out of money. Cash flow was good, but it wasn't that good. We couldn't open any more stores. And so that's when we turned to franchising. That's the way that got us through the next level. And we got good advisors, we put a good team of people together to figure out how do you do that. And effectively, as most companies do in franchising, the reason you franchise is you want to use other people's money to expand your business. Simple as that. The bonus to franchising is you have the owner in the store. Now, who's going to take care of that store better than the owner is going to take care of that store? So it was a perfect marriage. Small little business, little coffee business, needed hands-on attention. So we got the owners in the store, They're paying for the expansion. We're using our expertise in terms of finding locations, marketing, products, all that sort of stuff, and good quality management, well-trained on-site running the stores. It was great. Give you an idea how good franchising was for us. When we did start franchising, we went back and franchised the existing stores that we already had. That actually helped finance the franchise program. And we went to our existing store managers and offered them the franchise for their stores. Now, most of our managers couldn't afford to buy the franchise, but we made special deals with them, particularly the ones that we really liked, that thought were really good, would do very well. One particular franchisee, she bought her store, and she was our best franchisee. Best manager. And she's so good that whenever there was a problem with another company store, we'd shift her over there and she'd clean it up and straighten it out and get the staff going right and get the sales up and the costs in line, everything else. She was great. So anyway, she franchised her store from us. Within 2 weeks, sales went up and costs went down because the owner was in the store. That's the power of franchising. It was wonderful. She didn't have to worry about suppliers. She didn't have to worry about marketing. We did all that. She just had to worry about running her store, and she ran it really well. Became Franchise of the Year several years running, as a matter of fact. So we grew the business very successfully, and ended up, we sold that after we got to, 50, 60 stores. I've forgotten how many. We were right across the country. But interesting, and I caution you, we're all entrepreneurs, or many of you are entrepreneurs in this room, we're all in a hurry. And you know what? It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. I swear to God, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. When we were 7 years in business, 6 years in business, we had a bunch of stores, 40 maybe. Nobody had ever heard of us. Finally, about the 10th year, people would talk, oh, we had Second Cup, I know about them. An overnight success. They were, never heard of them before, heard of them, saw 4 of them today. It was really great. So it really is strange. There is this momentum that needs to build. And when it does, it's great. And we made a lot of deals across the country with shopping center managers, and then we got out on the streets. But the other thing that I want to sort of point out to you is that you can never stop changing. Think of yourself. What were you like 10 years ago? But you were different than you are now. Considerably different. Think of your parents. What were they like 10 years ago? Think of them now. Bet you they're very different. Everything changes. Business is the same thing. Business is constantly changing. If you stopped at McDonald's on the way to for breakfast this morning, well, when Second Cup started, McDonald's didn't serve breakfast. They opened at 11 o'clock in the morning. They didn't always have breakfast. And many other stores are like that. I mean, if you stopped at the drive-thru, McDonald's didn't always have drive-thru. Tim Hortons didn't always have drive-thrus. Things change, and you got to change. You got to spot the change. You got to stay ahead of the change. You got to be aware of it. And how do you do that? You pay attention to the customers. You really got to pay attention to what the customers are saying and thinking and doing. In the shredding business, document destruction business, we started that business. Similar startup situation as Second Cup. It was a disaster. I mean, why have one disaster when you can have two? So what happened was we had this really good idea. We did a market study, and it was all about what do people do with confidential documents when they're finished with them, when it's time to get rid of them. And the industry, the records management industry, was treating it as, we'll take care of that for you, and the command record centers and the automated record centers, all sorts of them out there in those days. There's not so many now because they've all been consolidated into guys like Iron Mountain and Recall. But it was treated as a secondary item, and people weren't paying a lot of attention to that stuff. Identity theft really hadn't wasn't very well known, etc. So we came across this idea that people really needed to have a secure way, convenient, secure way to get rid of documents. And you did it 2 ways in those days. You bought a shredder, and you had a shredder in your office, and in those days, there were no $99 specials from Staples. it was $3,000 or $4,000 that you had to pay for a shredder. Or you had a company come and take your documents away and shred them at the end of the month with everybody else's documents. So it was an area that wasn't treated very seriously by the records management industry. So we came up the middle and we said to companies, look, we've got this big shredder, massive shredder. It's on the back of a truck. We're going to come up right to your door. We're going to shred all your documents right in front of you. It's as secure as if you're doing it yourself. And it merely takes minutes and we drive away. Simple as that. And all your material goes for recycling. So you get to be a good corporate citizen. Boom. All of a sudden, we created, same thing, literally a blue ocean, a brand new market. This was a market, nobody was there. Absolutely nobody was there that we did this. Now, we had to learn a lot of things, because that's the problem with when you're first. You got nobody to follow. You got nobody to look at and see how they're doing it. So we went, and I'm embarrassed to say, we designed our own shredder. I mean, there's probably 1,000 shredders on the market today. For some reason, I have no idea why, probably due to selective memory, why we decided not to build our own shredder. So we built our own shredder. It was horrible. It was the worst piece of junk you could possibly imagine. It had bells, and it had wheels, and it had ropes, and it had chains, and it had smoking oil, because it was hydraulically run, because we thought hydraulics were great, which, by the way, they were, if they were engineered correctly. So anyway, there we are. We've got this absolutely dreadful piece of equipment mounted on a truck that was much too small, so that every 2 hours we had to go and empty the truck. But the customers kept calling us back. As bad as we were, the customers kept calling us back because it was better than what they were doing themselves. So we learned from our customers. Get a better shredder. Get a truck that works. And off we went in business. And we learned constantly from the customers what they needed in their offices to make our service as convenient as possible to them. We constantly dialogued with the customers. That's a nice word. Eh? We talked to them. Anyway, we spoke with the customers, we interviewed them all the time, made sure we understood what their needs were, and the business changed. The same way that Second Cup changed, the same way that McDonald's changed, the same way that all good businesses change. You find what the customer needs, and then you meet those needs profitably, and you got a winner. So we built that business. Same deal, vision. We never lost sight of our vision. When we put that first Proshred truck on the road, we knew it was the first Proshred truck. There were going to be hundreds of Proshred trucks across the country and across the continent. We knew that the very first day. And we were always focused on that. And whenever the spit hit the fan and we had problems, and let me tell you, like all businesses, we had problems. Example, how do you finance a $200,000 truck that nobody's ever heard of before? Let me tell you, you go knock on the door of the banker and say, Mr. Banker, not necessarily CIBC, and you say, Mr. Banker, I want to buy this truck. It's got a big, massive shredder on it. I'm going to shred documents for people. It costs $200,000. Will you lend me the money? And he looks at that and looks at the industry and says, you seem to be the only people that are going to be in that business. He said, yeah, what a great idea, huh? And he said, well, gee, I'm not too sure. If I finance that truck and you don't make the payments and I got to repossess it, who am I going to sell it to? You? You're the only guys in business. So I think we'll take a pass. So we had to get very creative on the financing of those trucks, and we ended up raising about $3 million to finance the first 22 trucks because they're just unheard of. It was just too new. And so we were able to do that, and then we were able to march out that business right across the country. And by and again, it became a franchise. We knew that right away. It was going to be a franchise because we knew the power of franchises, and we would sell a territory. We'd sell Ottawa, we'd sell Montreal, we'd sell Quebec to a franchisee, a well-financed business person who could take on the financing of several trucks and build a substantial business. And so we really got to know that end of the business. We were actually in effectively two businesses. We were in the shredding business and we were in the franchise business. And really it is two separate businesses. And they work hand in glove, but it's two different marketings, it's two different thought processes. So it's quite an effort to make a franchise work, and particularly a good one. So that was the neat thing about getting that business going, is that we just expanded it, and again, just down the middle. Really, everybody else was ignoring that business. To the point that, I guess 6-8 months after we started the first truck, we had our very first competitor in Toronto, who, of course, as so many people do, when they're in a competitive situation, they started up and they charged less than we did. So, and the next competitor came along, and probably a year later, and he charged less than him. So while those guys were all having a race to the bottom, we raised our price because we were better. What a better way to tell somebody that you're better, right? Yeah, raise the price. And if you got enough guts, or chutzpah, or whatever the term is, people believe you. And we were better, by the way. And we did that. We ended up, I'm not sure, but just in the Toronto area alone, probably with about 15 competitors. And only one was any good. The rest, they had a perfect model to look at, to emulate, to try, and they didn't do that well. And they just didn't pay attention to what the customers wanted. And if they miss what the customer wants, you're out of luck. You're absolutely out of luck. And you can't rely on logic. Logic doesn't work. Logic, marketing, they're almost mutually exclusive. Swear to God. Think about it for a sec. I invent something that's going to save lives. Won't cost you any money. It's going to save your life. All you got to do is use it. It'll save lives. It'll save your children's lives. They're called seatbelts in cars. And they have to pass a law to get people to wear them. You think about it. It's amazing. Fire things. What are they called? Fire alarms. Smoke alarms. That's it. They got to pass a law to get people to put them in their houses. They're $20 It's going to save your life. Chuck you, Farley. I want to buy a case of beer. Think about it. Logic, marketing, okay? So when you're working on whatever idea you have, don't fall in love with the idea. Make sure the customer falls in love with the idea. Nobody cares who you're in love with. Really. Fine, does the customer love it? And are there enough of them? If your mother really likes the idea, expand your research area a little bit. Expand the study. Okay. So find out who the heck is in love with it, and are there enough of them? And will they pay for it? And then put it together, get it out there, and get it out there as soon as possible. I mean, we got that shredder out there, and it was just a piece of junk. I mean, I'll tell you how bad it was. We had it out at Trinity Square, which is a big office building downtown Toronto. This was, I think, we had the truck for about 3 months at this point. It was so noisy you could hear it from 3 blocks away. I don't know why we weren't arrested for something. Anyway, it's there. Trinity Square is a bit of a covered loading dock. So our truck is in there. Paper is being brought out. It's the regional headquarters from Bell Canada. Probably 5,000 people in that building. So there we are, and we're shredding away. Now, as I said, we designed this piece of equipment. Okay, a bunch of guys with ties designed a piece of equipment. Do you see a problem there right away? So anyway, it turns out the truck, we're very proud, ran hydraulically. Not the truck itself, but the shredder ran hydraulically off the motor of the truck. All very nice. Well, unbeknownst to us, hydraulic oil doesn't like heat. As a matter of fact, it reacts really badly to heat. It begins to smoke. So we didn't have a coolant system on the hydraulic tank, and so the truck is working for hours and hours in this area, and the hydraulic oil is starting to heat up, and it's starting to heat up, and smoke starts billowing out of the bottom of this truck. Okay? Sets off the fire alarms. And of course, people get a little excited in a big town when a multi-story building fire alarms go off, particularly when there's smoke. And so the whole building is evacuated. And oh, by the way, our driver is still inside the truck wearing these big mother earmuffs because the thing's so loud. Okay, he has no idea what's going on. The doors are closed. And he's shredding away inside. And all of the fire trucks in the world have arrived at Trinity Square, okay? All of the employees are all standing around with their coffees wandering, and there's this single truck in the loading bay with smoke coming out of it, okay? So the fire department, okay, they're approaching this thing like a SWAT team, like on TV. You see them, they've got the truck surrounded, okay? And they're moving in on it, you know, each taking their turn, but get closer and closer and closer. Whip open the door, and Leo jumps, wonders what the heck's going on, and of course at that point sees the smoke come rolling in and everything else. And the good news is, of course, that every TV station in town was there. And so on the 6 o'clock news, Toronto became aware that Proshred Security was now in business. And apparently a very secure company, because not only did they shred the material, apparently they burn it too. So we did okay. So things changed. The thing is, we could have waited till we had the most perfect piece of equipment, but we didn't. As soon as we had something that we could put in front of the customers, we got it out in front of the customers. And we found out what worked and what didn't work. Now, other than trying to burn down their building, Bell Canada was really quite happy with the service because they didn't have to do it themselves. So we learned from our customer. We learn from our customer, and that's what is the big success in most of our businesses, listening to what the customer has to say and then finding out how can we provide that and make some money at it. You know, if you're going to go into business to save whales, God bless you. If you're going to go into business to save rabbits, God bless you. Okay? Really though, you should go into business to make money. That's probably a better idea. Then if you've got lots of money, you can save all the whales you want. Okay? Start with the money. So we were able to listen to the customers, deliver the service that they wanted, and then make lots of money, which is probably a good idea. So the other trick in doing all of this is not limiting ourselves. Particularly if you're in love with an idea. Now, we were very fortunate, as I said, we didn't invent any of these ideas. We didn't invent coffee. We didn't invent shredding paper. We didn't invent ambulance systems. We didn't invent that. We just took an idea and adopted it to what we needed done or we thought customers needed doing. So because we weren't in love with our idea and absolutely fixed on it, we were able to expand it, to change it, and to bring in the right team of people to make it happen. Because as we grew in business, we realized we had reached certain ceilings in terms of our talents. And the trick is we had to bring in other people that had talents that we didn't have to make the businesses work. And that's a really, really tough thing for entrepreneurs to do, to let go. It really is, kind of like parents and teenagers. A little tough to let go, especially Saturday night. So it is really a problem for entrepreneurs, and I caution you to pay attention to that. If you want to achieve that vision that you're going after, if that's what you're trying to do, you've got to do all you can. And if that means stepping aside and letting go and let someone else do that is better at doing that than you are, do that and do it as fast as you can. It is incredibly important to make that happen for yourself. Now, we had the same situation with Samaritan Air. Samaritan Air, young guy comes to see us. 26 years old, if I remember correctly. He's a pilot. And like most pilots, most young pilots, just live and breathe flying. They love to fly. They would pay to fly. In many cases, they have to pay to fly. And he was one of those guys. And he had summer jobs while he was at university, all to do with airplanes and everything else. And he discovered, just seeing what's going on, paying attention to the marketplace, he discovered that because of the changes in the Ontario health system, they were setting up hospitals that would specialize in certain areas so that instead of trying to have specialists in all of the hospitals, in all across the province, that if there was particular problems, if you want a heart transplant, well, London was the area to go. If it was a trauma, emergency, Sunnybrook was the place to go. There's different hospitals had different specialties, and so instead of moving doctors and having lots of doctors all over the place and sort of thinning out the expertise, they would move the patients to where the doctors were, where the health care was. So they needed a system to do that. And we got into that business simply because of that, to move patients around Ontario. And we were doing it. We were bringing people from Sudbury to Toronto, from London to Toronto, and then we'd have to take them home again and back and forth, and moving patients all over the province. And the business expanded. We're looking for opportunities. Again, you got to change. What's out there? What's needed? Well, every winter, we started making lots of trips down south, down to Florida. Got all these snowbirds going down to Florida. They're on their retirement or semi-retirement or whatnot. You get somebody decided he wants to water ski and breaks his leg in 14 places or something like that. Guess what? He wants to come home. Come home to the Ontario hospital system. And so we were ferrying people back and forth, or not back and forth, back from Florida, from South Carolina, and from those areas up here, and bringing patients in. So the business grew. I think we ended up with about 16 planes in our fleet. But it goes back to this young guy who came up with the idea. His name was Adam Keller. Smart guy. And he had a vision of fleets of airplanes flying patients all over North America. That was his idea. And as I said, we had 16 planes, 3 of which were Lear jets, and we were flying people and parts all over North America, bringing people back. And we went to other countries, etc. We went to Athens once or twice, and then down to South America, etc. But mostly it was North America. Now I mentioned parts, which leads into looking for blue ocean opportunities. You always got to look for the opportunity. Don't stay still. What else is out there? Who needs me? Here's what I do well. Who needs me? Who needs what I do? Well, you've all heard of just-in-time manufacturing, brought in by the automotive industry, but it exists in just about every industry. Very big in the automotive industry. So we go to the automotive industry and say, we understand that a lot of times you run short of parts. And the line stops, and that's the problem. These car companies, they got 2 days worth, 3 days worth of inventory sitting out in the yard. And if the truck doesn't arrive, that inventory starts shrinking, and they're watching out the gate for that truck to arrive because the line stops. If there's no seatbelt buckles, if there's no door handles, if there's no carburetors. There are no carburetors. What am I talking about? They don't put carburetors in cars anymore. Anyway, whatever. And so they have emergency situations very often. They need a load of seatbelt buckles. They need a load of door handles. They need a load of stuff in the next few hours. So we go to them and say, we can do that for you. We have planes sitting on the ground, ready to fly anywhere in North America in 20 minutes. We can be in there. That was our sort of little motto, that way we could go. That, by the way, in the air ambulance business, most of our flights weren't emergency flights, but that was it. We could put a flight in the air in 20 minutes. And let me tell you, a third of our business ended up moving auto parts. Well, that's not bad. We're an air ambulance business, and we completely found a whole blue ocean all to ourselves. Nobody else paying any attention to it. There we were, flying auto parts all over North America, and we'd get a phone call, and we were told that we had to be in Baltimore to pick up a box of seatbelt buckles and take them over to Windsor. Simple as that. And we were flying all over the place. Or we'd bring them in here, bring them into any airport. And a little aside to that I can tell you now, I wouldn't have told the story a few years ago when we owned the business. All of our airplanes had call signs, as all planes do. You all watch TV. And so our planes were Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3. And that was the indication, and all the air traffic controllers knew that if Halo 2 was coming in, that it was a medevac plane. And of course, they get priority. So there we are coming into Pearson, the busiest airport in the country, and we're calling in Halo 3, flight from Baltimore coming in, and they say, okay, you're cleared for runway such and such, and then we hear the tower, okay, Alitalia flight 306, go around, British Airways flight 902, go around, and there we are, they're all scattering, and it was great. Okay, right into the hangar, and then we close the doors. But it was really something, because we found a whole brand new market that you wouldn't even think of going at if you're in the air ambulance business. So that's our business grew. Our business and the shredding business was the same thing. We found a whole brand new market. The women in the crowd here will be very disappointed to hear that we shredded Gucci shoes, Kevin Klein belts, Rolex watches, all sorts of absolutely gorgeous counterfeit products. It was a big business, because what do you do if the police have confiscated a truckload of Gucci purses? Throw them in the, take them to the dump? Are you kidding? What's going to happen to them? Right. Okay. You can't do anything with them. They had to be destroyed. And they called us in because our machines could destroy those things. And then years ago, when the tax on cigarettes was so high that the smuggling of cigarettes was huge, whole truckloads of cigarettes were being confiscated across the borders. And what do you do with a truckload of cigarettes? Can't very well burn it. Ta-da! So there we were, blue ocean for us, finding new opportunities for our business, but always with a vision of what we wanted the business to do, because everybody wanted to sideline us and to get us into other things. When we were in the Second Cup, people would say, well, that's great, you got the Second Cup. Why don't you put an oven in the back, and you could sort of bake muffins, and maybe you could sell lottery tickets too, and this is a really good corner. Perhaps you could sell ladies' stockings. It's convenient, it's right here. You can't do that. You got to stick with what you do. You got to stick with what you know. Be true to your vision. Stay focused on your vision, and you'll get where you're going to go. You'll make it happen. And then bring in the team that's going to do it. Build the brand, and that's part of sticking with the vision. If you start smudging who you are and what you are, then you're nobody. You're nowhere. And people aren't sure. So you've got to be really sure. A friend of mine named Bill Johnson, who is the former president of McDonald's, was telling me that McDonald's had problems with their brand in different countries because it meant different things. So they had to become very conscious of that. And for example, when they put McDonald's into Mexico, it was in Mexico for a couple of years, and he became president of Mexico at the time, not of Mexico really, it's McDonald's Mexico. They already had one. Anyway, he started asking, what do those golden arches mean? And to the Mexicans at the time, the golden arches meant America. Had nothing to do with food. So they had to be conscious of that. That was what their brand meant at the time. It was years before the golden arches represented food. When they went to Russia, and he was part of taking McDonald's to Russia, and Russia, the golden arches meant that's the place where they always have food. Very different brand, a very different meaning to the people there. And because in Russia, the stores didn't always have food. They all ran out of stuff. But at McDonald's, they always had food, and that was their brand for the longest time. And so they had to work with that brand and deal with that, and that's very important in terms of whatever your business is going to be. is you've got to be very true to your brand. So he's true to your vision, true to your brand, and stay focused on that. And it's easy to get unfocused and get sidetracked. People will do it to you all the time, and they'll try and sidetrack you. So you got your vision, and you stay true to that vision, whatever it is, and you make it happen by following it, by reminding yourself all the time. You should write it down. You should say what it is. You've got to understand what your vision is. And don't mix it up with strategy. Don't mix it up with goals. A vision is not a goal. I'll tell you a little story about a goal and a vision and sort of put it in context for you. And it's partially a true story. The rest is all made up because I didn't like the ending of the other story. But anyway, this guy wins the lottery. He's a doctor. And he has a recipe for bread. One of these multi-grain breads. It's just absolutely fabulous bread. It is delicious bread. It is healthy bread. He's a doctor. He says, I got this money for a reason. I'm going to help people. I am going to find a way to make sure that this bread is available to absolutely everybody in Canada. That's on every grocery shelf in Canada. I can't make them eat it, but I want to get it to them. I want them to be able to see it, to be able to have it. And so that was his vision. He had a vision to have his bread in every grocery store in the country. So now he had to decide, well, how am I going to do it? And he looked at it and said, there's a couple of ways I could do it. He says, I could build the biggest mother bakery here in Toronto and ship the bread out to every grocery store in the country. Doesn't sound like too economical, but who knows? But that's the one strategy he could do. Another strategy was that he could license the recipe. There's lots of commercial bakeries right across the country. He could license that recipe he has and get all the bakeries that sell to the grocery stores to make that bread. They'll make more money. They'll make some money because they have an added product. Works not so bad. Third strategy is I'm going to own bakeries in all of the major areas in the country so I can control the quality and make sure that it's all being done the way I want it to do. And I can do that by either building actual bakeries or buying bakeries that already exist, but basically owning bakeries in every city. So he chose that latter one. He chose, I will make the bakeries and I will control the bakeries and I will deliver the bread to the stores. So we have a vision. He wanted his bread available to everybody in Canada. He had a strategy. He was going to do it by building bakeries right across the country. And his goal, in 5 years, I want to be selling 3 million loaves of bread a month in Canada. So there you have it. He had his vision, he had a strategy, and his goal. And it's very important that you don't mix them up. Your goal is not your vision. Okay? Your vision is something else, is beyond that. And as you think of your businesses, as we did with ours, that we always had a vision. We always knew what we wanted to accomplish, what was out there. And then we worked backwards from that on how we were going to get it. And let me tell you, it really works. And then if all of the people who work for you, who work with you in your business, can have the same vision, wow, you've got the greatest job in the world. Because everybody's thinking the same thing you're thinking. Can you just imagine? Everybody in your organization is making decisions based on trying to get to that vision. Man alive, does that make your life a lot easier? That makes HR's life a lot easier. It makes everybody's life. It makes their own lives a lot easier because they know what they're trying to accomplish. Just attached to that vision. Everybody at the Second Cup, everybody at Proshred Security knew what our vision was, and we all worked towards it. And it was really great because everybody got up in the morning, not maybe every morning, but pretty well every morning, everybody got up and wanted to go to work because we had something to work to. It wasn't just a job. And let me tell you, when we sold those companies, because that's basically what we do, we build them up and we get them really going really well and we sell them, we had a lot of disappointed people because they were part of a vision. And it was okay. The vision continued. The people who bought Proshred Security took it and did very well with it. The people who bought Second Cup took it and did and grew it much, much bigger than we grew it. So the vision stayed there. It was really wonderful. And Second Cup is now in a whole bunch of countries around the world. The Proshred Security is now absorbed into one of the largest records management companies in the world, Iron Mountain, and is just doing an absolutely fabulous job. They're shredding thousands and tons of paper and really doing a great job. So the point is, the people just bought into the whole thing because they bought into the vision, because we shared that with them and we reminded them, and the whole thing developed its own momentum. So that's a few tales from my story of what worked, what didn't work, and the fun I had doing it. So that's my story, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Thank you very much.